Roleplay Retcon does not own any part of the original versions of movies we retcon, nor are we associated with the artists who make them. And let me level with you guys. Sometimes we're going to say dirty words in this podcast, and that's okay. And maybe you don't want your kids to hear that, and that's okay too. But you as a parent get to make that decision on what they listen to and don't listen to. Thanks, and enjoy the episode.
A man who has to falsify can't look the truth right in the eye. His call for help is a pathetic cry. His deck's a few cards shy. Envy.
Welcome to Roleplay Retcon. If you're a first-time listener, also if you're not a first-time listener, I guess.
If you're not a first-time listener, you're not welcome.
You're not welcome. Please go away. Try again another day. These are kind of a weird episode. This is not our usual shtick. We call these Writer's Room episodes, which is RIGHT, which is very clever. We always have a guest for Writer's Room, and this is unprecedented because we have two guests today.
Double the fun.
Double the fun. We have Adrian and Pete from the podcast Big Meeting. Hey, Adrian. Hey, Pete. How you doing?
Hi. Really great. Thanks.
Tell us a little bit about Big Meeting.
Okay, so Big Meeting is a podcast where Adrian and I take our very carefully constructed movie ideas, movie pitches to actors and screenwriters and directors, and they tell us what they think. And it seems that most people think that our ideas are really, really terrible, but we keep going anyway, and we see what happens.
That's right. We're not quite sure why the ideas aren't really sticking, because we've had, award-winning screenwriters and directors and producers and actors, and every time we manage to secure a meeting with them, we pitch them these ideas, we really think about them really hard, and we know they're good ideas, but it's been quite a while now, and no luck yet, but we keep going.
We put all the good stuff in there, like ninjas and crystals and interdimensional space travel and, all that kind of stuff, but no one seems to really go for it.
Yeah, I think we need more ninjas, to be honest.
Ninjas.
I was really impressed. I think it was was it John Cena dressed as a bee?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That was probably my favorite thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's a pretty scary concept.
It's a scary concept, and it was great, and I want to see it on the big screen one day.
But doesn't he look a bit like a bee?
He's a little bit like he's been stung by bees, probably several.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why he's so swole.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea is still out there. It still hasn't been sold. So if you guys are interested, we'd be happy to have a chat.
When we hit it big, maybe we'll remake it.
We are poor and unsuccessful.
Oh, well, for now.
For now.
We think it's probably would need, for that one specifically, we were thinking sort of 350 mil kind of budget. So
yeah, you need it for the bees.
Some people, or just for the bee training.
For the bee training
specifically, yeah.
One of my favorite pitches, and this one didn't really get fleshed out by you guys, which made me kind of sad. Recycled vampires. Honestly, that one I was like, I'm sold on this one. Vampires are so hot, Right now, especially with the Twilight Renaissance, they're super hot these days.
Yeah. Well, actually, that one was one of Pete's, so I don't know, Pete, if you'd like to just go into a little tiny bit more detail on that one.
Do you ever have a sensation where something just comes into your head and it needs to be real, but no one's ever said those two words together before? That's basically what happened with that, and I think that the film would be about us understanding what a recycled vampire could ever be. This is a whole new genre. It's a real rich territory for creative expression.
Starring who?
Starring Michael Caine.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You reached into your A-list bag for that one.
as starring Michael Caine as the recyclist. I think perhaps he's making vampires. He's kind of working at a recycling plant, and he realizes that people are throwing away into their recycling bins exactly the ingredients needed to create a vampire, according to his Arcanian codex. I think there's some work to do. There's some work to do on this one, isn't there? But we'll get there.
There's minor tweaks.
We could use your help, guys. We need help with something.
Okay.
Yeah. Normally our shtick is that we spend like 2 or 3 months remaking a movie using tabletop RPGs and our own brilliant minds. And but every once in a while we find a movie that we want to kind of retool, but we don't want to spend 3 months on it. And one of those movies is the 2004 movie Envy, starring Jack Black and Ben Stiller, Amy Poehler, and Rachel Weisz. And directed by Barry Levinson, who also directed a lot of great movies like Rain Man and Good Morning Vietnam. But Envy is not one of those movies. I felt like what it really needed was a better pitch than what it has. I thought that you guys would come in good here.
Well, it's funny you say that, because when I loaded this up on Amazon, I think it was, the little log line that I had for the film, it read like one of our pitches. Ben Stiller is envious of someone at work, and then suddenly he kills a horse, and you're reading it just thinking, did someone I don't know, have a stroke halfway through it?
And then the last sentence is, and also starring Christopher Walken. Yeah. It's like, what? Yeah, where'd that come from?
It's almost like
two kind of there.
Yeah, well, but he was, wasn't he? But it's almost like two completely different movies were just accidentally kind of stuck together in that one explanation, which is why we love it as a pitch.
Yeah, and the actual movie is probably at least 3 or 4 movies stuck together quite badly as well.
I think a good way we usually start these out is just asking everyone like their general impression, like, because we'll surprise ourselves sometimes, and usually Alex will be like, "Well, I love this movie, and all of you are jerks," you know.
That's usually how it happens. Yes.
Yeah. So, like, Adrian and Pete, like, did you like this movie or did you not like this movie?
You go first, and let's see what you think, because we've talked about this a little bit, but let's hear your thoughts.
So the opening sequence of this movie kind of made me feel sick, and it was pretty much downhill from there. I actually genuinely had to watch the last 20 minutes or so twice, because I think my brain actually switched off the first time, and I honestly couldn't really remember what happened, because it just sort of, my brain had given up. And I think that the entire cast and crew had also given up by that stage.
Definitely.
Yep. I mean, I'm pretty much everything you said. I wrote some things down just because I really felt like I needed to almost journal this, because it was such a harrowing experience. So I'm just going to read you. I'm going to read you the few lines I wrote as my kind of review. This film is the definition of less than the sum of its parts. The whole thing is exposition. It's boring. It's meaningless. It's the height of naughty's arrogant big budget gibberish. And worst of all, it's not funny. Every line is written as though it was the first draft and delivered as though it's the first time they said it. And overall, this movie contributes nothing to the great canon of human cultural endeavor, and the environmental cost of storing and digitally distributing it is not morally justifiable.
Yeah, light them up.
So 5 stars.
Yeah.
The end.
5 stars.
5 stars out of 12,000.
I actually thought maybe you were pranking us by asking us to watch this movie.
Yeah, I had never heard of this movie before either, and Ben was just like, "We should do this one." It's a real movie.
But isn't that interesting?
One of the first
It
things.
certainly was a movie.
It's so interesting though that it's like you have, like, I hadn't heard of it either, but it's like quite like serious guys in it, right? But you
Well, like, and we're Pete and I at least are about exactly the right age to have sort of been aware of this movie and to have enjoyed this movie at the time. And I didn't know it happened either. The biggest red flag for me before we even started was it's 96 minutes long, and that's pretty much always a bad sign, right? Even Beastmaster 2 Through the Portal of Time is 10 minutes longer.
So before we watched this movie, I had never heard of it, so I decided to watch the trailer. And honestly, I thought that the trailer was really fun. I didn't read the pitch on Amazon or anything. I didn't know about the horse dying until it happened. But I thought that the trailer was fun. I was like, oh my gosh, where does the poop go? This seems like the silliest, craziest movie. And it was incredibly convoluted. I think all of the individual actors are great and they're funny, but for some reason they didn't I don't know if they didn't get enough time together on screen to interact with each other. It was just a bunch of like little vignettes that didn't really fit together, and they weren't integral to the story, and they weren't funny by themselves. I don't know. There was a lot going on with this movie.
Well, I thought this movie was great, and you're all jerks. No, I'm kidding. This movie was awful. No, I had also never heard of this movie, and it came out right when Ben and I were graduating from high school. So I feel like I would have been very cognizant of movies coming out in that era, because that's all we did was just go see movies. But yeah, it's so bizarre, and I think Ben and I were talking about this at lunch the other day. The characterizations of our main protagonist are wrong. Ben Stiller is not a person that you root for. He's just kind of a jerk. There's nothing that redeems him in any factor. And Jack Black's character is just way too nice. And I could see where they were going for that dynamic. It doesn't work for a movie in my eyes. And yeah, I think everything that I could say has been said before me.
Yeah, I actually did see this movie in theaters even, in 2004 when it came out. I think the story is that, like, it was testing really bad with test audiences, and they were just going to put it on DVD. And then, like, School of Rock happened. And so that was, like, such a huge hit that they were like, oh, well, we've got a movie with Jack Black in it. Let's put it in theaters. And, like, no, it still didn't do good. So, yeah, it's I think its biggest sin is it's just super boring. Like, there's even this, like, one of the few things I liked was the funny little songs they had through it. And the lyrics of the end credit song say something like, no, I actually wrote them down. I say something like, but I wrote them down. No explosions, no car chases, no shootouts to be found. Simple tale of envy, twerk nothing too profound. And, like, I don't need explosions and car chases, but maybe don't brag about how boring your movie was, like, in the movie.
Yeah.
Can I just give some of my my big criticisms off my dome?
Yes, you may.
We'll kind of like bounce, I'm taking the ball and I'm turning it back around. We're gonna shoot it back through you guys. I'm gonna cut that. That made no sense.
That was a really weird thing to say.
So Ben has the ball right now, and then he's gonna give it to us.
The big thing is, like, this movie isn't about envy, for one thing.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Completely agree.
It's about regret. And it's not even really, even if you make the argument that those two things are similar, this movie isn't really about envy. It's about this one guy's envy, and I don't care about that. Like, and all of the things that happen to him to cause his envy are his own actions and his own fault. And none of the things he loses are things I can relate to. Like, now you don't get your bean-shaped swimming pool. Like, I'm not going to cry for you.
The number of times that they specifically say bean-shaped swimming pool in the movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
I think they thought that was really, really funny, and it's not funny at all.
It's not. It's really not.
But beans are hilarious. They make people
Oh, yeah,
fart.
I forgot, actually. You're right, yeah.
I mean, if the swimming pool were filled with beans, then we might have something.
That would have been funny, at least. It would have been absurd and nonsensical, but I honestly would have taken just a, like, Anchorman style string of unrelated stupid jokes over this movie. Like, that would have been watchable, at least. But, like, yeah, I don't care about Ben Stiller's troubles. The character. No, I don't remember his character's name, but I do care a little about. It was Tim. You're right. I think it is Tim. Yeah, Tim's, like, supposed to be the straight man. He's supposed to be this, like, everyman, but I don't identify with him at all. Well, no, you know what? I did do it like one time. They almost got it. Right at the beginning, I actually felt it in my gut when he, like, didn't back Jack Black's, like, seemingly stupid idea that really did seem dumb, and then, like, missed out on the success and the wealth. I would actually regret that. It would make me feel bad. But I don't think I would let, like, ruin everything in my life, become, like, a huge toxic person.
Look, he was a bad friend, and he didn't support his friend, his best friend in the world, and he deserved everything he got. Anyway, continue.
But, like, he had a great job and a great family and a nice house, and, like, he only lost those things through his own, like, shitty actions where he treated his friend terribly. And I think, yeah, well, that's kind of, like, my big ones, is that, like, I didn't care enough about Jack Black and his family either, because they didn't like let him be enough of a lovable goofball at the beginning. I didn't get to know the guys before the bad stuff happened, so I didn't mourn their friendship. Even though this movie did not need to go on any longer than it did.
I totally agree with that. I think it was about the setup. Like, there was just no setup. Just stuff just happened, and you didn't know who these guys are, or you didn't care at all. And Ben Stiller was just being a dick, and who cares?
Yeah.
I'll tell you who cares. Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken cares way more about these people's lives than we do.
Yeah.
Right, Christopher Walken was so weirdly involved in this guy's life. It's like he had absolutely nothing else to do but be in every part of this random stranger's life.
Am I the only one who thought that maybe he wasn't real?
Yes, I mean, no, you're not. I also thought that.
That might have made it interesting, maybe.
And, that was what was so weird to me about, just the basic rules of storytelling. Like, you have this guy who comes in and gives him advice to change his course. And then normally that person doesn't, like, stay massively involved in, like, the rest of the story and cause a lot of trouble and stuff. They're like, okay, he said that thing in the bar, now he's changed his life. But he was, like, then a main character throughout the rest of it. But also, like, but hang on, there's a story about him. And his...
Well, it sort of turns into it being about him, doesn't it? Like, he's like really important, and then blackmailing him and all sorts. And he's even in the very last scene with the dumb flan sale, pocket-sized flan or whatever it is in the closing credits. He's there too, and he's friends with them now or something.
The scene after Tim accidentally shoots, I don't even remember, Jay, what was his name? Christopher Walken?
J-Man.
J-Man. When he accidentally shoots the J-Man, and he's just running around with this arrow in his back, and he goes and he runs up to that car with the kids in it. I don't know why. We had a watch party where we were all watching this movie, and I'm not... Okay, yes, I am. I'm kind of a little bit of a pansy. I get scared pretty easily. And I screamed out loud like 3 times during that scene. It was terrifying. I don't know why they needed that.
Just another example of a weird, disjointed, bizarre bit that makes no sense in the rest of the film. I feel like almost every scene was a little bit like, did they need that bit?
Yeah, but that's what was so weird. The guy directed Rain Man.
He's an Oscar winner, Oscar-winning director.
And he was just like, oh, whatever, yeah, just do stuff. And it's almost like all of them we just do not care. Do some stuff, and let's just go home.
Well, it feels to me like the script was sort of being written while it was happening, and they must have, as you say, I guess it tested badly. Maybe they massively re-edited it too, because there's sort of things that are introduced that, well, there are things that happen that haven't been introduced yet. You're like, they sort of assume that you know. Like the horse shows up to his house. The bloomin' horse, the white horse, is outside Ben Stiller's house, and they're complaining about the fact that it's pooing on the lawn the whole time. And like they have this whole thing before you even know that it's Jack Black's horse that's doing it. So it's like this weird, strange, like you would never write it like that. So I can only assume that things were edited all in a weird way to try and make this terrible film make some sense.
Shall we? Can I throw some thoughts at you?
Please.
So I have 4 main ismies with this film.
Start with a third.
The third is that I hate Ben Stiller.
Always start with a third.
Yeah, the third is that I hate Ben Stiller. I'm gonna just in case. Just in case any of you are friends with him, I'm going to come after him quite hard here.
No, I don't like anyone else named Ben, so...
Ben Stiller, if you're listening, please take offense to this. Continue, people.
Please, you can feel free to email me, Ben, and explain yourself. So I generally don't like Ben Stiller as an actor. There are some films that he's in that I like was he in Dodgeball, right, and things like that. But I don't like his getting angry thing that he does in a lot of films. I don't think it's funny. I think it's charmless. I think that he like you were saying before, you don't root for him. You're not sympathetic to him. It's not funny either. And there's just a lot of Ben Stiller basically doing nothing. Saying nothing, doing a lot, but saying nothing and just being on screen. And I just don't find it interesting, engaging, fun to watch. I just don't like the fact that he was in this. So if you edited him out of the whole movie, I'd probably prefer it. And it would also then be about like 25 minutes long, so that's fine too.
I kind of feel like I know what you mean about Ben Stiller. I don't think I hate him as much as you do, but I'm getting there. And I'm actually starting to hate him more now that you've explained it in that way. But I think that if you were sympathetic to the character, then you would, I think his getting angry, you'd kind of be on board with a bit more. But like in Meet the Parents or whatever, like he's, you're sympathetic to the stuff he's been through. But in this, he starts off sort of thinking that his friend's an idiot for having this dumb idea, and then immediately jumps to just him being angry all the time. There's no personality or character or anything to sort of have any empathy for there. So yeah, I think I'm on board on that one.
Who says I got into acting because of Ben Stiller? Do you know what I mean? Like, who was like, this guy was my idol? Just the way that he gets really angry all the time was just amazing. I did not enjoy watching him for this hour and a half of my life.
When Ben Stiller went on that 25-minute rant to, oh my gosh, when they were sitting on that fountain and he was just like, yeah, and you just had this nice thing and then your horse, and he just kept going and going and going.
It was so annoying.
Oh my gosh.
It was sort of exhausting.
It went on so long.
It felt like I think there are a couple of weird cuts in that, and I kind of feel like they thought, right, we don't really have a climax to the film. This has kind of got to be the emotional climax. So let's do some reshoots and like just do more of that, and let's just do lots and lots and lots of that. Speak as fast as you possibly can. It's meant to be funny, and then he says to Jack Black, he sort of admits, I was envious the whole time. I was so envious of you. And that's the first time in the movie that anyone sort of talked about envy at all or shown any evidence of envy, because he wasn't envious. He was just angry the whole time. He didn't want any of Jack Black's stuff. He didn't seem to want Jack Black's life. He was just, just angry.
That's actually, if I could piggyback on that, just real quick. I know you're in the middle of your 95 theses here, but you're this is actually one of my like big ideas to swap. Like one of my big rehash ideas. My remake ideas is like you said, watching Tim's anger like simmer and eventually explode is uncomfortable. It's not funny. But like if you and I kind of like Ben Stiller. I know that he's easily not liked, and I don't have any interest in like arguing with you, like, because like, yeah, you're not wrong. Like,
Ben Stiller is great. Okay, you're wrong.
Yeah. But I kind of like him, and I actually, while the don't taste my pants scene was not a very good joke, I watched it and I was like, yeah, these guys kind of have some chemistry, and I just thought like, just swap them.
Yeah.
I'd really love to watch Jack Black like do his energetic frustration thing, like, and be jealous. Like, that'd be really funny. And you mentioned Dodgeball earlier, and the reason he's fun in that movie is because he's a villain. And like, God, it'd be so funny to watch Ben Stiller walk around with this like shit-eating grin and this like unearned confidence. Like,
absolutely. That would be a brilliant idea. That would be so much better. And then, but then I just think that would have been such a good movie, because then you would have had you would have known what kind of movie that is. It would be like the hapless, like zany Steve Martin kind of guy, kind of, being envious, and that would be really funny. But they decided to make it the not funny. I kept thinking, if this was a movie where it was like, what if Jack Black wasn't funny? That's what this movie is.
That was the original title, actually, I think. But I mean, I agree with all of that. And I also think that part of the problem is here, like someone mentioned before, sorry, I can't remember who, Jack Black's character, he's a really nice guy, and he's really generous, and he's really forgiving, and he has this dumb idea, but it turns out to be a good idea, and he actually works really hard at it, and it's a huge success, and he's happy to share his wealth and whatever. So how can you be rooting for the other guy? Like, we should really be rooting for Jack Black, right? And then it's funny that he kills his horse or something. Like, that's not funny. So
it was not.
Yeah.
I was appalled when that happened. I was like, oh my gosh, how could this happen? How could they have him kill a horse? And then at the end, it's like, oh, whatever. But I was not. It was I was not laughing. It was not funny.
Well, to be honest, that's actually one of my other complaints is that it's kind of, that's why I feel it's kind of like an arrogant movie because they made it and they were like, okay, what's a good plot device? I know he kills an animal like accidentally and it's like a whole funny thing that sets up a whole act.
So much of the plot hinges on the horse dying.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a huge amount of the film.
And then later on, when you're like, okay, how's he going to get out of this weird thing where he's like killed a horse and had to hide it? How's he going to get out of that? Oh, I know. Let's murder someone else. Let's kill the Christopher Walken character. How do you fix a murder in a story with more murder? It was just weird.
It's really weird.
I feel like you could kill a horse and it'd still be funny though. Like this.
Well, I was going to say that, like, obviously it's not funny to kill a horse. Let's just get that out there. But like, you know, I mean, Dumb and Dumber is a poor comparison because it's a totally different film. But like, you could do something in a film like Dumb and Dumber, and it's sort of obviously meant to be so silly that it's a different kind of thing when you kill a horse in a film like that. When you kill a horse in a film like this that doesn't really know what it is anyway. It's described seemingly as a black comedy, which is not correct. It's just weird because it's like, why is that part? And also the thing about killing the horse, he doesn't even do it on purpose. It's not because he's envious. It's because he just shoots the arrow in the wrong direction, right? So it's unrelated to the plot.
And then a third of the entire movie is about the horse, which isn't anything to do with envy. It's just the accidental thing that happened.
It's like, who cares?
And then he finally comes clean about it, and Jack Black's like, okay, whatever. It's fine. I forgive you.
Yeah, right.
It was just my favorite thing in the whole world, but whatever.
Did anyone else think that maybe I had this weird moment, and maybe it's because, as I say, my brain had just sort of left the room by this stage in the film, but I kind of thought that somehow at the end the horse was going to be alive still or something.
I did too.
But nope.
It was really weird.
The whole time.
But no, it's floating down the river instead.
They teased that bloated corpse.
Yeah.
When
again,
it wasn't on
hilarious.
top of the... No. When it wasn't on top of the car anymore, I was like, oh, okay, so maybe it's just gonna, like, it was just in a coma or something.
Yeah, I thought maybe the poo spray had like helped it to survive or like, I don't know, something. But
that would have been great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just terrible.
Yeah. Oh, another movie, Animal House. They kill a horse in Animal House, and like,
right.
And that scene where they it's still in the office when they're being berated, and those guys come in and like rev up the chainsaws is a riot.
But it's a totally different. But I mean, although that movie's kind of, in a way, it's all over the place, it knows what it is as well. Like this, I just think that's probably the biggest problem. It's not clear what, I don't know. It feels like a different crew came in every day and filmed a little bit of a different kind of comedy and just sort of stitched it all together.
So we can establish that if you're going to kill a horse, know what your movie's about.
Right.
It's not. Yeah, that's it. They took killing the horse flippantly.
Yeah.
You gotta commit. You gotta commit to it.
There's the bit where he says, "Oh, and then I shot the bum, but he hardly felt it." And you're like, "Sorry, you're talking about maiming a homeless person for no reason, and it's just like a throwaway fun joke."
It's very 2004.
It is very 2004. But again, it's just not funny. The way they do it just also isn't funny. It's just weird.
Yeah,
I'm quite angry now.
just talking about it's got your dander up.
Humanity was at its worst in 2004, apparently.
Pete, just a quick question. Yeah. Can I just really quickly, Pete, do you hate Ben Stiller more or less than James Corden? Because I think it's going to be close.
Well, here's an interesting point.
We hate James Corden, by the way.
Well, he's casted in our next series, so...
I think the problem with both of them is the same for me, which is that you're not sympathetic towards them. And I know that James Corden and Ben Stiller are very extremely successful people who are doing very well for themselves. But I feel like there's something sort of nasty in their eyes when they're doing these. I don't think you're sympathetic to them.
So this is why Ben Stiller won't do our podcast. I keep telling you. That's literally the only reason.
I need to cool down about this. If you see graffiti around the place about Ben Stiller, it's me.
I was wondering about that.
I'm sure he's very nice. I think. Do you know what?
I think he's.
Well, I was just going to say, I think the problem is, like I said about this being an arrogant movie. I sort of feel like one of the problems with Ben Stiller in terms of being funny is he was so successful and so popular and such a big deal that actually it's very hard then to tell someone like that, that thing that you do, can you sort of not do that this time and let's do it a bit differently? because
Right.
Yeah.
then they just do their thing.
I kind of think that and somewhere in my head I compare him to Jason Bateman a little bit, because I love what Jason Bateman does, and he always does the same. He's basically always the same character, right? But it works really well. He's basically always the same. But like, I think you still have to be in a good movie. Like I think you can get away with basically doing the same thing all the time. Even Jack Black, but the movie around you's got to be pretty good.
I mean,
You can't
Harrison
just point
Ford's been
them in
doing
a
it for
direction.
years.
Yep.
Exactly. I mean, to a certain extent, so is Tom Cruise. You know, like that you can do kind of your thing, and it doesn't even have to be that good. It can be solid, but the rest of the movie has to work.
Do you want to hear my theory on acting?
Oh, right.
Well, I don't know. I was hoping you were going to say no, so I didn't actually have to explain it. But let me tell you my theory on acting is that actually a lot of the people that people think are the best actors are actually just talking, but they've got a good voice, so people like them. Like George Clooney. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's definitely true with George Clooney. I love him, but you're right. He just talks.
You could just say whatever he wants. You'd be like, what an amazing actor. That guy's great.
I don't know if I agree with that 100%.
I'm not sure if that's true for everybody, but I think you're right. I think what I would just take that to the level to say that some people get away with being really successful by
true.
just talking well.
I can agree with that. So that, yeah.
Like James Corden.
You know who I do
No comment.
You know who I do like is Rachel Weisz.
I love Rachel Weisz.
I think she is amazing. I think she's
always good.
Yeah.
She's always good.
She was good in this. She was by far the best person in this.
Mm-hmm. And with the smallest part, the smallest nothing
and
part.
And did you notice?
Which also didn't make sense.
Oh, yeah, it didn't make any sense at all. Did you also notice that basically most of the time she was just cleaning and tidying up and folding clothes and not really doing anything and just sort of throwing
things away?
Yeah,
talking about kitchen utensils,
which was quite interesting. And I don't know if Jency, if you had an opinion on this, I was wondering. But I actually felt like the women in the film had pretty much were very relegated to just someone sort of saying something in the background to the other two, and actually meant all the other guys were just dudes kind of messing everything up.
Yeah, absolutely. I also agree with that. I was thinking about that, especially with Amy Poehler's character. It was really weird to me that, first of all, Amy Poehler and Rachel Weisz didn't really get any screen time together. And Amy Poehler also didn't really get much screen time with anyone else. Every time it talked about her, it was just like her off to herself.
In another room.
Right. And she was just the butt of her own joke in every single scene, but she wasn't really a part of the movie, which I felt wasn't fair to her because she's hilarious and amazing.
I love Amy Poehler too. I think she was poorly served by this, and there are a couple of bits where I think you sort of had a little bit of a hint of her being able to do something good with the material. It wasn't her fault, but it's just there was nothing there. And the whole dumb political thing, it just didn't work at all. And it just, why are we, what is this? Like the climax of the movie is sort of them at her rally or whatever. Like, where did that come from? Who cares?
I have no idea.
Ben had a good theory about this.
That's one of my remake ideas. I wanted like Weisz and Poehler to have their own subplot instead of just them piggybacking on their husband's plot and like not really being part of it.
Yes.
I wanted to give the Jack Black family something to be jealous of, which is that like Rachel Weisz was running for office at the beginning of the movie and is actually pretty qualified for it. Like she's smart and qualified, and Poehler once Poehler is rich, like just have the envy drive her to use like sheer wealth to try to beat Weisz, and like also have this battle that envy has like fueled.
That's brilliant. I think you're thinking about this like a proper film. I think that's the problem here, though, because what you're thinking about it makes a lot of sense, because you're thinking about, well, look, how about the envy isn't just the angry guy versus the dumb guy, but there's like lots of different envy situations happening throughout the film. That's a much, much richer, better idea. But yeah, I think you're thinking about the wrong film, I'm afraid.
Honestly, though, I would like to interject. I really liked the camaraderie between the female characters, the tiniest little bit that we got. And I get that Rachel Weisz's character was just doing it because she wanted to keep her money or whatever. But I really liked that she was there to help Amy Poehler's character. I don't remember any of their characters' names, but I really liked that she was there to help Amy Poehler's character and to back her politically. I mean, the whole thing was silly and ridiculous and didn't belong in the movie, but that specific part, I did like that. I liked that they weren't being just like extra competitive and bitchy toward one another. They had some female camaraderie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I was actually keeping my eyes open through the movie to see whether or not it would, fail the test of whether two women talk to each other about anything.
The
And
Bechdel
I
test.
thought it was going to fail in the most spectacular fashion when Amy Poehler goes to do her canvassing and she says something to the woman who answers the door, and the woman looks over her shoulder and asks her husband, who's off the screen, for an opinion.
Who we were voting for again?
Yeah, exactly. But no, that was the one nice bit, wasn't it? When she's locked in the bathroom, right? And then she and she kind of gets her out.
Yeah, that was nice.
So, like, a one note I have is that, like, yeah, most of the reviews I've seen have said, like, this is just one long poop joke and that's not funny. And, like, yeah, I kind of agree that, like, poop jokes are funny and, like, Jackbox and Apples to Apples, but don't make a whole movie off of them. But the one funny poop
Right.
joke, I actually loved that old lady. She's the best actor in the whole movie. And her just going, okay, but where does it go? They gotta go somewhere. Yeah. Like, I actually, like, cracked up at that pretty good.
Right. Well, that was a weird ongoing thing. Right?
Yeah.
They kept saying, like, where does it go? And I honestly thought that the final scene was going to be, it starts raining
rains from the
poop
sky.
on them or something. Which would have, but there was no conclusion. It's like, well, it just disappears. Like, that's it.
They never
Except
really, they never really tell
Maybe
you
that
where
was set up
poop
for the
goes.
sequel. I don't know.
Yeah, so there's that last scene with the doctor, right? And they gave the doctor, like, a thick foreign accent.
What was that?
And
God.
well, I'll tell you what it was. They finally realized that their movie wasn't funny. And, like, they're trying to cover up the fact that Corky being poisoned to death and washing up as a bloated corpse and having a doctor, like, have to, like, cut him open and analyze him. They were like, wow, this isn't funny. I guess we'll be kind of racist here and just have her have a foreign accent and have all the characters not understand what she says. And, like...
Yeah, panicked racism.
Yeah.
Let's, like, just do an accent joke. Like, it's just pathetic.
Oh.
And then why would anyone buy Pocket Flan from them? Aren't those two guys, like, famously disgraced?
Yeah. Didn't they kill that horse we saw in the river last week?
I think that actually feels like the only thing that was realistic in the whole movie, given the way the world is going. That you can just completely destroy everything and then just be like, hey, buy this thing from me.
Do we need to quickly have a quick chat about how you pronounce that word, F-L-A-N?
Yes.
Because I don't understand it, I'm afraid, being from this side of the Atlantic. Is it flan or flan? Because they say both in this movie, I don't know what's going on.
I would say since it's a Spanish language thing, it's probably closer to flan, but...
Right. Because we have a thing called flan over here, which is a totally different thing. It's like an open fruit tart.
Right.
Which is totally different.
But to that point, in both of our places, there is a specific way to serve that thing, and if you don't serve it that way, it's not that thing anymore. You can't just stick it in a Go-Gurt tube. Or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
It's called Go-Gurt here. I don't know what it's called in the...
Well, I was just
love
thinking
that
toothpaste, to be honest. But yeah, Go-Gurt's brilliant. We need Go-Gurt over here.
It's just a little
If anyone's
tube
listening,
of
can you
yogurt.
bring Go-Gurt to
Wait.
the UK?
It is called... what? I have to Google it. What is Go-Gurt in the UK?
Do you guys have anything like that where you just have yogurt in a tube?
In a tube?
I think we do for kids, maybe.
Frubes?
Like,
Frubes. We have Frubes.
Frubes, yeah.
Frubes is what Go-Gurt is there. It's the exact same thing. Just,
that's brilliant.
Just
Oh,
framed
right, okay.
differently.
Well, it's definitely marketed, I think, purely at kids here, but I'm going to start buying it.
Oh, it is here too, but adults do it all the time.
Oh, fine. All right, fine.
Speaking of food, I laughed one time when watching this movie, which was when Christopher Walken was talking about pretzels. And there's one, I think it's the only good line in the movie when he says, when he's talking about his pretzel, he says, a quality pretzel doesn't need salt, and that's a fact. And that's the only bit I laughed at.
Ever since watching it in theaters in 2004, my entire life I've quoted "good for you, good for you."
Yeah, that was quite good.
I thought the breakout line of the movie.
They should have just let Christopher Walken do more stuff like that, because I feel like they kind of neutered his natural Christopher Walken-ness. Somehow they managed to make him kind of boring, most of the time. When in every other movie, when he's actually trying to do a different character, he's amazing. But in this, somehow they just like took it all away and just sapped it. He did have a couple of good lines though. Another one I liked was when Ben Stiller said to him, "What time is it?" And he said, "What kind of a question is that?" And it's like, that's actually kind of a brilliant way to do that. But they didn't let him do enough of that kind of thing. They just
the bit where he's in
what it was.
When he's in his bedroom for some reason, and there's the whole hiding in the cupboard bit
in the toilet.
It suddenly felt to me like the Christopher Walken had just shown up on set and was like, "Oh, I'm in this movie," and they're all like,
"Hey, come and do this."
What? And then they just basically acted, and he had no script, and that's why he was sort of wandering around, sort of saying things which weren't very funny, and they were trying to sort of act around him. And I love Christopher Walken, but like it really felt like that. Like it was like, what's happening? Like were you actually meant to be in this?
It honestly felt that way to me too. I think I even said that out loud when we were having our watch party. I was like, does he even have a script, or is he just saying stuff here?
I forgot to send him the script. I almost feel like maybe that character, like I think Pete, you said earlier, like it would make sense if he was just in one scene, just this like weird guy, Christopher Walken pops up and like changes the whole direction of the movie. That kind of makes sense. You either do that or you make him a proper character, but he's sort of this weird in-between guy. You don't really know what's going on with them the whole time. And yeah, the thing at the place he has in the forest or whatever, and then helping Ben Stiller so much with the disposal of the horse. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. With this device, I can place this horse on top of any object. I mean, that's a line for the ages, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Everyone always quotes that.
I feel like the same thing with Jack Black. I feel like Jack Black was constantly scolded for being Jack Black, and so therefore, like, he didn't get to be Jack Black in this movie.
Yeah, be less Jack Black.
Christopher Walken, can I give you one of my rewrites?
Yes.
So we've all seen Twin Peaks.
Well,
so
the good parts of Twin Peaks, at least.
The good parts of Twin Peaks. Okay, so that's the first one, yeah. So he kind of reminded me of Bob from Twin Peaks in the way that he was kind of like, yeah. And I kind of thought, what if he was like some weird agent of chaos who just inhabits different subjects, and eventually, through just hanging out with Ben Stiller so much, he just sort of absorbs Christopher Walken and just becomes this absolute maniac who just goes around destroying everybody's lives. But then Ben Stiller becomes it and starts to wreck Jack Black's life and Rachel Weisz's life.
Wow.
So adding sort of an evil poltergeist element to it. I like that. Yeah.
I had a similar thought akin to that, but it was that Christopher Walken's character was the embodiment of envy itself.
Ah,
great. Well, there you go. See, that's a concept that could actually make sense somehow. But the things that he was getting, the ways in which he was steering Ben Stiller's character weren't really about envy at all. I had a point separate from all of that about just weird camera stuff they do. Because first of all, just quickly, why on earth did they go to Italy? That whole thing about going to Italy was completely random. I feel like there must have been more to that originally, and they just sort of did this really quick montage and then did a whole load of Willy jokes with the Prime Minister in the hot tub or something. Like, what was that? Like, they had all of the stuff about going to Italy just to make the jokes about how big they're... Anyway, but when they got to Italy, they had this weird montage of the different shots of them, like, meeting the people and showing off the poop spray. And they all of a sudden had these weird like sepia tones and strange angles and like sort of grainy footage and stuff. And it's like there's been nothing in the film like that up to this point. It was very, very strange. And then another bit when they're getting rid of the horse, there's like a sped up thing where it's like all like silly and there's like running around like an old movie all sped up. Like what? Those were just completely out of place with everything else. And I feel like whoever was in the editing booth that day just like got the wrong notes or something.
I saw that on my second watch. The weird speed up thing. Yes.
Yeah, what was that? So
this
weird.
Whole movie was
well, they're
just
playing
like
that like
it was
like
just so
completely
disconnected.
They're playing that completely atonal song behind it. I don't remember what it was, but
yeah.
Oh, it's Valderie, Valdera, and like I was like,
yeah.
A dead horse just fell off the back of this car.
And then also about that song, just quickly, Christopher Walken later claims to have sung that song, but actually it was the song that was playing in the background of the scene, right? So that's a really surreal thing for him to say that he was singing it, because it wasn't. It was actually just in the soundtrack. Like, what is going on?
Let me give you. I've got another reboot version of this. Right. Let's say the only character I actually liked was Rachel Weisz, because she was supposed to be bad, but I was like, well, you know what you want, and you're doing your thing. So what if the whole movie was actually just about Rachel Weisz just trying to get along and be a good parent and holding the household together, and meanwhile all these other idiots are just sort of running around and sort of goofing off and being like, oh no, the horse and the flan and all this stuff, and she's just like, I don't have time for this, and actually the movie is just about her just living her normal life while just randomly people just kind of run, like a farce, like people just sort of randomly run into the room and go, oh no, the horse, and run off. Like, I would have much preferred watching that and just being her getting really annoyed, like in Falling Down or something, where she's just slowly going mad because all these idiots around her are just off on some other planet, but she's just stuck in it.
I'm here for this. I really liked at the beginning when Ben Stiller's character was talking to her, and they were all in that little bug net thing or whatever, and Jack Black was like, "Oh, you didn't tell her about vaporize," and he told her about it, and Rachel Weisz was like, "Yeah, that's a great idea." Like, it just really seemed like she was kind of the mediator a lot of time. I agree. I think that would have been cool if they had really played that up.
I thought that was a really funny bit as well when the Amy Poehler and Rachel Weisz, I mean, not for a character reason, but just for sort of a funny scene, the way that they react to the idea that's sort of the only thing where I think the whole setup kind of worked, because it was annoying Ben Stiller that Amy Poehler and Rachel Weisz both thought it was a good idea, even though there was nothing to the idea apart from the name. And that was really annoying him. That kind of never translated to the rest of the movie, but that was at its essence what it should have been the whole time, right? But yeah, it never paid off. I had an idea for a remake as well. So I think the horse should have been revealed at the end to have never existed. And so Ben Stiller's like worried about it and driving himself crazy, but it was actually like him going a bit crazy. It was like a metaphor for him killing his own dreams or his friendship or his envy or something. And also Christopher Walken didn't exist either. And actually none of the characters existed except for Ben Stiller's boss at the sandpaper factory. And the whole thing was like a dream he was having in his lunch break. That's where I saw this going.
In the pitch meeting, what do you think? In the pitch meeting, they went to 3M and were like, so there's this movie about basically this horse. They murder this horse, but don't worry about it. A lot of other funny stuff happens. Well, how much is
because there's this flan joke, so it's okay.
There's a flan joke. There's casual racism and whatever, and like how do you pitch this to someone for support? Also, can we just? I don't think we've talked enough about how half of this entire movie was just a horse heist. Like, what was that? Like, I don't understand. Like, how that was that what the movie was? Because I think you could have done a much.
I think originally it wasn't. I think originally that was probably meant to be a half the length, but it just because it's so short. The whole thing. I just feel like that was probably extended because they thought, well, we're going to have to make the horse thing the main thing because otherwise there's not really a plot to this movie.
I do not understand why they couldn't have just kept the horse buried in the bean pool. Why did they have to take it out of the bean pool and then drive it across town? If they had buried it in,
Was it like a Telltale Heart where it was just like the horse's heart was beating underneath the bean pool, and like he had to get rid of it?
I think it's because of Christopher Walken's lie that he was there surveying and that they couldn't put the pool there, but they were going to try again.
Right.
I might be wrong about that. There's a
hallmark of a good.
I guess.
Yeah, it's a hallmark of a good movie when you need to have a 2-hour discussion to figure out what the main thing about it was. I would watch an animated version of this film where the horse is the lead character, and when the Ben Stiller man shoots the horse, then all the other horses kind of come and sort of helping him. Then it's a kind of like it's basically like a horse movie, but with the 3M sponsorship.
I think the thing that's sort of frustrating to me as well is that I don't think this should be that difficult a film to make. I mean, you can make a sort of not very good film with this. I forget about the horse, but like about hardworking, straight-laced guy works hard, and his dumb, lazy co-worker gets really rich, and it's sort of there's something in that. It seems to me like you could make like a kind of normal, not very good film, but with this, they just took it in such strange directions that it's like there's no basis in anything anymore. Like I don't even know what scale we're using to define whether this is good or not. Like I don't know what's going on. I mean, I think you guys even said in one of the previous episodes, there's a movie out for every movie that you talk about, no matter how terrible you think it is, it's someone's favorite movie, right? But this can't be anyone's favorite movie.
No one even remembers this one.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone who enjoyed it.
What about, the thing that we're saying about how it feels like it's a bunch of different things stuck together? I think I would have watched a movie which was, if you imagine a camera behind the camera and kind of like The Disaster Artist or something, it's like this whole thing is going wrong and they've got this script. This one script was written, but then like the director's like nephew wrote another script and they're like, we've got to put some of this in. And then Christopher Walken just shows up on set for no reason. And then there was they separately like the people who were funding it said we did this whole like horse movie and we had to shut it down because the main guy was drunk all the time, but we've got these like horses and all these props and stuff, so can you just cram that in there too? Like I would watch the movie.
We've got a carousel too. Do you need that?
Yeah, just like the entire disaster of this movie happening. I would watch the movie of that coming together for sure.
Did anyone else think that their hair looked weird? Both of the main guys.
We talked about this.
Were they wearing wigs or something? Like, what is that? Like, were they wearing wigs? Because that didn't look like Ben Stiller's hair.
Yeah. At one point, I like messaged everyone else, and I was like, "Am I just going crazy, or does this not look like Ben Stiller?" And they were like, "Well, his hair is weird."
Like, what?
His hair is weird. Can we get back into Ben Stiller? I have a lot more notes about Ben Stiller.
Yeah.
One thing that troubles me about Ben Stiller often is I don't like the way they cut his hair quite often. It's always too long at the sides. And this was actually one of the first times I didn't mind his haircut in a movie, which is probably why.
I don't think it's his hair. I think maybe that's why.
And maybe that's why you thought it didn't look like him.
It was a different color and everything too.
Yeah. Can you imagine them saying, right, for this movie to work, we've got to give Ben Stiller different hair. Like, otherwise it's just not going to work. He can't have his normal hair. And it, makes sense.
Everything else about this is great. But are you wedded to the haircut that you've designed for Ben Stiller?
Because another thing I thought was there are several, the sort of dumbness of, again, movie writing, screenwriting 101. Like, there are several conversations that happen early on in the kids' softball game and the kids' school play or whatever it is. There's absolutely no reason why they're at those locations. Like, it doesn't give you anything that's helpful for the plot or for the characters or anything. It's just an excuse for the guys to have a conversation. Like, it could have been anywhere. They could have just been sitting in a room with no one else. It's just very bad writing, just really weirdly bad.
Okay, am I the only one who got their kids mixed up? I couldn't tell. Anytime there were kids present, I couldn't tell whose kids they were.
I kept forgetting Tim had kids. Because he barely tolerates his family.
Like, they both had 2 sons? Is that right?
Okay,
I think there was a daughter, wasn't there?
As of now, I'm swearing that Tim had 1 kid, and that, like, Jack Black had, 5, and one of them was a girl, yes. But I'm sure that's wrong.
Yeah, there might have been a daughter. See, I have no idea. And anytime they were talking about their kids or they were sitting around and children were present, I couldn't tell whose kids they were.
Ben Stiller definitely had at least one son, didn't he? Because he was talking about the flan afterward. The flan.
Yeah,
afterwards.
He just yells at his kid for an extended period of time.
Yeah, he's a very unhappy man, Ben Stiller's character. Like, he was already terribly unhappy in his life and his family. So it's sort of, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. Like, he was already an unhappy guy, it seems. And then his wife just leaves him one day, or I don't know, to go and stay with her sister who's called Windsong. What's that all about?
Right. We never even got to meet her. They had this whole setup for her.
Yeah.
And we never even got to meet her.
I thought maybe this will be someone famous and it'll be some sort of, funny thing. But no, they just let it go.
And she got real upset at Ben Stiller's character for, I don't know what, he called her the wrong name or something?
Yeah. That's the part where he calls her sister. That argument is so weird and, like, uncomfortable. And, and he says, like, wind feather or something, which is the wrong name, but, like, not insultingly wrong.
But like, why are we supposed? We don't know what her name is yet. So like, how can we find that funny as the audience? Like, it's like you're having your private little weird conversation, and then she comes back and she's been convinced by her sister, right, that everything's okay and she should be nice or something. But like, what? Like, that's just a very convenient thing to happen. It's just terrible.
Also, that's not usually what happens if we're being real.
Of course not.
Usually the sister is just like, nah, he's trash.
Well,
Get rid of
right,
him.
yeah. Rather than, it sounds like he's great. You should definitely, like, just go and forgive him for everything.
What if when he shot the horse, what if he started digging up the ground and it turns out there were loads more horses underneath there?
Oh,
Ew.
I like that.
I don't know what that is, but I think that's a better movie than what we watched.
Pitching Poltergeist. Do you know that? Like you guys do.
Yes.
I've got one more Poltergeist. Can I build on the Poltergeist on the idea
You moved
that
the headstones, but you didn't move the horses.
I think it would also be interesting if, as you were saying, if Christopher Walken was this kind of like conscience or the spirit of envy, but like if it like in a normal movie, the conscience kind of focuses on that one thing, like, oh well, you've got to resolve your envy. But actually, what if actually the conscience just started skewing him off into all this random stuff, like the horse and different things, and Ben Stiller kept having to be, no, what about like the envy thing? He's like, no, don't care about that. We're going to Vegas. We're gonna have fun.
And make other people envious.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that the first draft even had the horse in it. I really think that was like a later thing that they just thought, we've got to have something.
It had to have
because
been.
it's just so poor. It just doesn't make any sense because it's just
My theory is
anyway.
it's the other way around. That it was originally supposed to be a like Coen Brothers style farce where it was just a horse heist where they accidentally killed a horse and had to and kept running into problems trying to cover it up. Yeah, if you make the whole movie about it, it kind of works. then that really is a dark comedy.
Trying to get rid of a horse. Yeah, that'd be kind of funny, actually.
Rachel Weisz and Amy Poehler have to hide a dead horse would have been a really funny movie.
God, I would have watched it.
Oh, that would have been
just
amazing.
call it Horse Heist, the end.
Yeah. And then it's,
I love that.
fine. Done. I'm in.
Yeah, let's do
But
it.
in this,
Let's make that
but
one.
also in this version, they didn't have to kill the darn horse. They didn't have to kill it. He could have like kidnapped it and thought it was a good idea or something. Like, you didn't have to just shoot it. It's just so there.
And slowly he becomes friends with the horse and it teaches him humanity.
What's the horse's horse's name?
Horseplay.
Whose voices the voice of the horse in that version?
It's got to be Morgan Freeman, right?
I was going to say that too, actually. Joe Pesci.
We kind of established that envy doesn't really make him kill the horse. It's just being drunk and having a weapon, which is honestly a pretty good message to not be drunk and handle a bow and arrow. But like, yeah, what if he wasn't drunk and instead like opened like in his envy, like opened the horse's cage and just like let it run free off into the like, and the horse got lost instead, and then like really frees the horse to like come back and like at an inopportune moment and like cause more,
There you go.
Farce.
That's a much better idea.
Yeah.
Much better idea.
As long as we're
Yeah,
not murdering the horse.
Then the horse has agency.
That's it. Yeah.
I like that.
And Ben Stiller could have to pretend that the horse did die and sorry it died or something to try and cover up what happened, but then the horse comes back and he's behind him the whole time when he's giving the speech at the end or something.
It's just a little horse head just sort of like comes up over his shoulder. I love it.
Hello.
Hello.
Do it in a Joe Pesci accent.
Yeah, that was my Joe Pesci.
It sounded
there.
just
Yeah,
like
thank
him.
you.
Okay.
That's good, yeah. I thought that we had Joe Pesci for a second.
I kind of like Jack Black's bed, his stupid big bed. I kind of thought that was funny.
big.
Yes, but
Yeah.
the amount of shoes in beds in this movie is unconscionable.
It is the worst thing and I hate it. I have a thing. I don't like shoes on the furniture.
Okay.
And this movie completely disregarded my feelings on that matter.
Wow. I hadn't watched it with that eye. I'm gonna have to rewatch it now.
Yeah, they sell that bed for like $100 in the auction at the end, and I was like, I would buy it. I have nowhere to put it, but I would buy it.
My gosh. I would buy it it would take up my entire room, probably my entire house, honestly. That was a giant bed. But for $100? Yes.
By the way, I think we're pretty sure that our equivalent of flan is, we call it the French name, creme caramel.
Ooh, that sounds good.
I think it's the same thing.
Yeah,
And it doesn't come in toothpaste tubes.
Neither does flan, I'm pretty sure.
Adrian, I think you're way too worked up about the flan.
I just need to get this straight in my head. It's been bothering me a lot.
No, I'm with him.
For the record, I have no idea how to pronounce it. I don't think anyone does.
I've always said flan.
Well, because that's what Ben Stiller says in the movie, and it just feels like, I don't know.
But I definitely I didn't get it from Ben Stiller. I've always said it that way.
So we also take some we get some rewrite ideas from our audience. Our friend Franz said Ben Stiller needs to wear more eyeliner, and then also don't have Corky die. And that was "Don't kill the horse" was like pretty loud in our watch party. Like, don't kill the horse, everyone said. It was such a weird thing to have killed the horse.
It wasn't funny.
It wasn't interesting. And our friend Brad wanted Rachel Weisz to have more screen time, which, of course.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we do on Writer's Room, as of the last time we did this, is we reveal our next series. And
oh my gosh, Alex!
Can we move into that? Alex, are you ready to do your big reveal? Alex is our director for the next series.
Ah, yes. The next series will be the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Wow.
Did someone gasp in horror?
No, I gasped in amazement. That's going to be incredible.
It's going to be a wild ride. And what's great about it is Ben and Jency and our guest that we're having on, Kim from the Chaotic Goodness podcast, they have not seen the movie, and I've made sure that they have not watched it yet. So I'm going to keep the basic plot intact and let them improvise around it.
I am so excited.
You know, what the podcast sphere was really missing was a D&D 5e actual play podcast. There just aren't enough of those. So I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah.
It's true.
We got a Discord server and a Patreon. We'll post a link in the show notes to those things. We have a lot of fun on the Discord. It's where we do our watch parties. We watched this movie before we recorded this episode in it. I think people had a lot of fun despite the movie. Thanks to Nerdsmith for having us as a friend of the network. Lots of fun shows on that network. Check that out. And thanks again to Pete and Adrian.
No problem. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, it's been an extreme pleasure having you all on this.
Gosh, I feel like we're best friends already. I feel like we should just be on all of the shows together.
Let's do it.
You can find their podcast, Big Meeting with an exclamation point, pretty much any podcatcher, right? And also find out more at bigmeeting.horse, that's correct. Very fitting.
Yeah, all the other URLs were taken, so that was the only one left.
I've as of now, I've listened to all of Big Meeting, and I'm like so thirsty for more.
Oh, great. Well, we have another episode hopefully coming in the next week or so. So, yeah, don't want to give away too much, but watch this space.
The Dungeons & Dragons episode, our rookie camp, episode 0, or whatever you want to call it, will come out on August 5th. So check us out then. And also listen to all of Big Meeting. It's seriously, all of it is good, every minute of it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having us on.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, kisses.
Weren't nothing too profound. Be what you is supposed to be. Telling the truth will set you free. Zoobity bop, hey, that's just me. Doodly op bop a dee.